Thanks for tuning in to Eye on New Mexico. I'm Spencer Shaw, and this weekend we are celebrating Dia de los Muertos here at the National Hispanic Cultural Center. I'm joined with Dr. Rosalia Pacheco. Thank you so much, Dr. Pacheco, for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and on behalf of Dr. Margie Huerta, our Executive Director, I'm very pleased to talk with you today.
It's so exciting to be here for such a fun celebration, but a lot of our viewers might not be familiar with what Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, is all about. So do you mind breaking it down for us?
Sure. Well, it's a wonderful, cherished tradition, holiday that many people know. It's celebrated throughout Latin America, as well as we know in Mexico, but also a cherished celebration here in New Mexico. And it's celebrated typically on November 1st and November 2nd. So those 2 days are very wonderful days of celebration. And celebration, I think, is the key word for this, and you said that too. Often people think of death as somber and something, time to be mournful. But the roots of Dia de los Muertos remind us that we want to be very celebratory. And we look at death in a different way. This celebration, again, reminds us of that. There's a deep history, as far as the way that it's been celebrated and the way that this tradition started. So there are roots in both the Roman Catholic tradition. You might know of All Souls Day and All Saints Day. So that is part of it. But there's also the celebration that is the indigenous side, because this tradition has roots in the indigenous people of the United States. And so those traditions also kind of meld. So it's a mixing, intermingling of those traditions for this Day of the Dead celebration.
So it is multiple cultures coming together for this celebration. Do you know, as some of the roots of where Dia de los Muertos has started?
Well, the roots stem back, as I said, from some of the Roman Catholic traditions. So it's a day when, with All Souls Day and All Saints Day, we remember, especially All Souls Day, we remember those souls and the people who have gone before us, who have passed away. And so it's a time that we can, create altars or do something specific to remember them on those days. And then also there is the indigenous background with the Aztec people, throughout pre-Hispanic times, when the Aztec people had celebrations and had these specific traditions to recognize death and those who have passed on, those who have died.
Very cool. And so you mentioned the altars behind us here, also known as ofrendas. What is the significance of an ofrenda?
So an ofrenda is really a special place for you to put these mementos for those people who have passed away. But not only that, during Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, it's really a reunion, a family reunion of sorts. So we don't really think of death that way often, maybe, in society, in many cultures. So Dia de los Muertos tells us that this is a time when those people who have gone before us, who are loved ones, reunite with us, and it is, a time for us to remember all the special things about them, the food that they ate, their unique qualities. So an ofrenda, or an altar, always has, pictures of loved ones, maybe a toy, if there was a child that we're remembering, or a bowl of milk for a child who might have passed away. So there are those special things. And there are also the standard, I guess you can say standard, pieces that are on an ofrenda. So often you see candles, lit or unlit, but in the Roman Catholic tradition as well, the candles represent light and purity and beauty, hope, those types of symbolic representations. And we have marigold flowers, and those flowers are said to help the dead or the souls find their way back to their families or back to their homes or their community. And so the fragrant smells of the flowers and the beautiful, yellow and orange colors help them to find their way back home. So each piece is very significant. We also often find images like skulls or sugar skulls. You may have seen sugar skulls, and those are very festive colors. So again, the skulls aren't decorated in black or these somber colors. They're very festive and celebratory. Oftentimes too, incense is there, drinks, beverages for the dead souls who find their way for their long journeys. So there's food and drinks so that they are able to also participate in that festivity.
Really is a family reunion for everyone involved, past and present.
Yes, and I think that's the important thing to think about, is that Dia de los Muertos and that celebration reminds us of that connection between those who have passed away and the living, and as a time to be able to be reunited, as you said.
Definitely. And I'm so happy you brought up the sugar skulls, because that's such a fun juxtaposition, because when you think of a skull, you think of death, but all the bright colors and paint on it, and you see a lot of people painting their own faces in this skull pattern. What is the significance of someone painting their face in a sugar skull manner?
Face, and I think that maybe it roots back from that we all are all going to face death. That's something as humans that we can't escape. And that's one of the roots from some of these celebrations, where it's and even the ancient celebrations of the Aztec, is that everyone faces death, and it's a way of understanding it as a community. So I can see how that can be that discussion with yourself, or that process of understanding. I just wanted to mention that it said that, or in many communities, sugar skulls are placed on grave sites, and the sugar will, you don't have to go clean it up. It will, dissipate and go into the earth, and so that's why sugar is used for the sugar skulls.
Very interesting. I had no idea. Well, but Dr. Pacheco, thank you so much for breaking that all down. And coming up after the break, we're talking about other celebrations of Dia de los Muertos across the state. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Eye on New Mexico. This week we are celebrating Dia de los Muertos, and just last week the Santa Fe Plaza hosted their first ever Day of the Dead celebration, and people came in from all over the country to celebrate. Our Griffin Rushton went up to Santa Fe to check out the festivities for himself.
I haven't seen this ever, really, so to be a part of it's pretty special.
For the first time, folks in Santa Fe celebrated Dia de los Muertos as a community.
Not a lot of people know exactly the history of this, so it's great that we have this here within our community for people to be able to experience.
And the Santa Fe Kiwanis Club made sure the plaza felt like Dia de los Muertos. We're talking sugar skulls, face painting stations, colorful banners, and plenty of mariachi bands. But the celebration didn't forget the true meaning of the holiday. There were ofrendas scattered across the plaza, offering a place for everyone to remember their loved ones who've passed away.
I think that anything that helps us to do that, to take a moment, just hit the pause button and really reflect, I think it's good for us as a community, it's good for us as human beings.
Organizers say a celebration like this was long overdue in Santa Fe.
We have a big, strong Mexican community on the south side of our city that doesn't always feel welcome on the plaza. And so the first thing is to say everybody is welcome here.
And that includes plenty of visitors from across the country, like this group of women from Minnesota.
Good to see the culture and just the different, customs and their shrines. And it's just super cool. Very fun experience.
One woman from Massachusetts even brought pictures of her loved ones to place on the ofrendas. It was the first time she's ever taken part in the holiday.
I was a little nervous because I didn't want to do any kind of cultural appropriation, and I was so warmly welcomed.
And of course, it's hard to celebrate Dia de los Muertos nowadays without watching Coco.
He's family. This is no future for my son.
A new tradition for New Mexico's oldest city.
We all have a different thread that we can add to the tapestry of our beautiful city and our community. And so just us adding this thread to Santa Fe's rich history, it's a huge source of pride for us.
We're joined once again by Dr. Pacheco. Thank you again for having us here at the National Hispanic Cultural Center. We just saw in Griffin's story, there were people from all over the country. We talked to some women from Minnesota who came down to Santa Fe to celebrate Day of the Dead. So how can people from different cultures or different parts of the country celebrate Dia de los Muertos respectfully?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I think oftentimes people may be scared, thinking that they're not being respectful, as you said. But I think that just having that understanding that there's a history behind these celebrations, trying not to sensationalize them, I think, and trying to find out a little bit more about them. So we've talked about some of the things that are an ofrenda, some of the ways that we celebrated the days. So I think just doing a little bit of that research, but even going to events like the beautiful event in Santa Fe, and we also have events, here at the Cultural Center. So I think that it's just being open to that, not being scared about it, but also doing that extra step of finding out a little bit more about the history behind it, the reason behind it.
Definitely. If you go with the intention of learning, is that a better way to approach it rather than an entertainment event?
Exactly. And my position is education. We're all learning. We're constantly learning. And that shouldn't, scare us from participating in things that we don't know about, because we are all learning. And we can, that's together as a people, as a group. We can't stray away from these or shy away from these celebrations, because it's very important to the people, here in Nuevo Mexico, as we saw in Santa Fe, but also Mexico and Latin America, throughout the United States, other parts of the world. These traditions are so rich in history and beauty, and it's wonderful to see that people are interested and they want to learn more about it, and that's what it's all about, and it builds community, and that's what I think the essence is, that reuniting of family, reuniting of community too. That's what it's doing today.
Definitely. And you mentioned earlier, before the show started, that Dia de los Muertos is not Halloween. They are very different, even though they happen around the same time of year. Tell us a little bit more about why it's important to show those differences or recognize that difference.
Yes, and a lot of people associate Dia de los Muertos with Halloween. I think because it's around the same time of the year. But it's a specific, tradition. All Hallows Eve is a specific tradition, and it's more from the European roots of seeing death in a different way. We see during Halloween a lot of ghosts and ghouls, things like that. But for Dia de los Muertos, it's that festive celebration of death, reuniting with your family. So please don't say that Dia de los Muertos is Halloween. And if you do, that's okay. But then just remember next time that it's not.
Learn from your mistakes and learn the difference.
Do. And I'm, continuously learning, because some people, grew up with these traditions at a young age, but some people didn't. And then later on, you learn about them and you want to celebrate it. So I can't say that I know everything about it. I'm constantly learning.
Definitely. And so what is the best way for someone who wants to learn more about Dia de los Muertos for them to go out and do that?
There are a lot of different organizations. I know that there is the Ofrenda exhibit at the Hubble House, the Latin American Iberian Institute at University of New Mexico is a great resource, and then here at the National Hispanic Cultural Center, coming out to a lot of our events. So one of the things that we did most recently is we had a professional development for teachers. So we were able to share with teachers the tradition of Dia de los Muertos and some ways that they could respectfully bring that as culturally responsive teaching into their classrooms. So there are ways like that, and I think just looking for those resources online, we have some resources as well here with the Cultural Center.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for breaking that down and explaining that difference, because it is important to recognize that there is a difference in these two celebrations, even though they are so close together on the calendar.
Right.
Definitely. But coming up after the break, we're taking a look at the National Hispanic Cultural Center's calendar about what events they're having to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ion New Mexico. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we are looking back at the Dia de los Muertos celebrations that have been happening across the state. Just before the break, we were up in Santa Fe talking about their first ever Day of the Dead celebration on the plaza. But now we want to look at what's happening right here in Albuquerque. Dr. Pacheco with the National Hispanic Cultural Center is joining us now. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here again on behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Huerta. We are so pleased to be on this show and to be able to tell you about what we're doing. It's because we're doing some great things.
So on Wednesday, you had a big event here at the Cultural Center. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yes, it was a beautiful event. We were on the route of altares, or altars, and so there was a calendar or locations of altars throughout New Mexico, well, throughout Albuquerque rather. And so we had the Mexican consulate here. We had music, we had food. Of course, people were able to contribute to our community ofrenda. Here behind you, you see another community ofrenda from a specific organization. We have from an organization here on our campus. But we had people throughout Albuquerque here and out of Albuquerque. We also had a model, and she was, had face painting and the whole shebang. And people were able to take pictures with her. And we also had, it was just a great way of celebrating Dia de los Muertos here at the Cultural Center.
Gotcha. And so that was on Wednesday, but Dia de los Muertos is usually celebrated on the 1st and 2nd, but just if you missed the 1st or 2nd, doesn't mean you missed out on all the celebrations. You have another event coming up tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect at the Cultural Center on Sunday.
Yes, and it's a wonderful event. As the education program manager, I schedule a lot of family events, so we will have a family day for Dia de los Muertos, Dia de Familia. We'll have a wonderful dance group. Cisne de Nuevo Mexico is going to be doing baile folclórico dancing specific to Dia de los Muertos, and they're from Belen, a wonderful community organization. We are going to have sugar skulls, and people can decorate sugar skulls. They can make paper marigold flowers, and they can make a mini ofrenda that they can take with them or contribute to our community ofrenda. And we will also have the art museum open, so they can come in and they can visit our new, most current exhibit that just opened. In fact, the mountains wore down to the valleys. So that's a great way for people to come to that very special sound exhibit, which is a very new thing that people are experiencing. So hopefully people will come out to that event. It's family friendly. We'll be giving away also hot chocolate and pan de muerto, which is a traditional food for the holiday of Dia de los Muertos. And we'll have a musical group. So lots of fun, and hopefully people will come out to celebrate with us.
Definitely. So what time should they head down to the Cultural Center? How long are these festivities going on for?
Thank you for asking. It's 11 to 3, so anytime between that time frame. We'll have the dancers performing at 12, and then we'll have musicians at other times during the day. The museum will be open, and we'll have ongoing art activities during the day.
So you mentioned earlier this new exhibit is a sound exhibit.
Yes.
I've never heard of that before. What does that all entail?
Well, people have to come out here to see. Our curator, Jadira, not our curator, our art museum program manager, she worked with some artists to curate this beautiful exhibit. And perhaps you can ask her a little more about the sound exhibit. But for those 3 days, I know for 3 days there will be a sound, and you can only hear it once. So the records wear down. Each time you go into the exhibit, it's going to be different. And then there's going to be another component to the exhibit where we'll have the visual component.
Oh, that's very interesting and very, like you said, once in a lifetime.
Yes,
it's only going to play
lifetime.
once.
So this is a two for one at this event. So you can come out to our museum, see that groundbreaking exhibit, and then also come celebrate Dia de los Muertos what more can you ask for?
And there are so many different factors of Dia de los Muertos, from the marigolds to the candles to the food, the sugar skulls. What would you say are some of your favorite memories of Dia de los Muertos?
Well, really it's the familia, the family, getting together and then realizing that there's much more than to just, our everyday lives. It kind of gives us a chance to stop and think about the beauty of life, of death. So most of my memories are of, my own family members, but this celebration is a way to, remember them and honor them. And so being able to take out those special things that remind you of them, or their pictures, it's just, gives me chills.
Gives you chills. Do you have a picture that you're going to be setting up this year?
Yes, I do. I have two of my sisters, Lucia and Linda, about 25 years ago were tragically died in a car accident. So, those are the two, they're always on an ofrenda, we can make sure. And so those are the two special pictures that I'll be putting out.
Perfect. It's great to honor your family in such a special and yet community-focused way.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for your time here today, explaining what Dia de los Muertos is and what people can expect this weekend, because the fun is still coming along. Yes. You didn't miss anything just yet.
Well, thank you so much. It was an honor to talk to you. And please do come out to the Cultural Center. We have so much to offer.
Perfect. And if you don't come out next week, we do have another episode of Eye on New Mexico airing next Saturday. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
I haven't seen this ever, really, so to be a part of it's pretty special.
For the first time, folks in Santa Fe celebrated Dia de los Muertos as a community.
Not a lot of people know exactly the history of this, so it's great that we have this here within our community for people to be able to experience.
And the Santa Fe Kiwanis Club made sure the plaza felt like Dia de los Muertos. We're talking sugar skulls, face painting stations, colorful banners, and plenty of mariachi bands. But the celebration didn't forget the true meaning of the holiday. There were ofrendas scattered across the plaza, offering a place for everyone to remember their loved ones who've passed away.
I think that anything that helps us to do that, to take a moment, just hit the pause button and really reflect, I think it's good for us as a community, it's good for us as human beings.
Organizers say a celebration like this was long overdue in Santa Fe.
We have a big, strong Mexican community on the south side of our city that doesn't always feel welcome on the plaza. And so the first thing is to say everybody is welcome here.
And that includes plenty of visitors from across the country, like this group of women from Minnesota.
It's good to see the culture and just the different, customs and their shrines. And it's just super cool. Very fun experience.
One woman from Massachusetts even brought pictures of her loved ones to place on the ofrendas. It was the first time she's ever taken part in the holiday.
I was a little nervous because I didn't want to do any kind of cultural appropriation, and I was so warmly welcomed.
And of course, it's hard to celebrate Dia de los Muertos nowadays without watching Coco.
He's family. This is no future for my son.
A new tradition for New Mexico's oldest city.
We all have a different thread that we can add to the tapestry of our beautiful city and our community. And so just us adding this thread to Santa Fe's rich history, it's a huge source of pride for us.